Okay folks, welcome back. This is your old pal HONDO doing another review on another Spincast reel I've had over about a year now, and I can clearly do a decent review on this reel. This is on the Stampede, bassproshop Stampede. Its line capacity is 8-pound test to 95 yards, 10-pound test with 80 yards, 12-pound test with 65 yards. It's a 4:3 to 1 gear ratio reel. It is a 4-ball bearing reel, but I've serviced this reel before and I've only ever found 2, so I think that's a misadvertisement to say that this has 4-ball bearings. But it is, despite that, it's a fairly smooth reel. It casts really well, and it does have a 12-pound drag and a star drag system right here for ease of setting. When you're fishing, it has a really nice oversized knobs, non-slip knobs. Really, the knobs and the handle on this is really good. This is the cheapest Spincast 4-ball bearing reel that you're going to find. Plus that, it's 4:3 to 1 gear ratio. It's a little bit faster than the Zebco 2020 Authentic series of reels. Things I like about the reel, a year's worth of use of it. It casts a lot better than the Zebco 33 Authentic 2020. It also casts better than it casts a lot better than the Platinum 2020 that I got as well. The drag's a lot easier to set. Now this one doesn't have like a wide range drag system or a SLD drag. Basically it's the same drag setup as their old Extreme reels and some of the older Johnson reels, where basically when you set the drag with the star drag and you pull on the drag, it oscillates around the spinner cone, and it has 2 pickup pins. Really nice pickup pins, all steel, and it has a nice metal frame and a graphite body. Really good reel. The things I like about it is that it has a big hole, casts really far. Another thing I like about it is the handle crank is done really well. It reels really fast. 4:3 to 1 gear ratio makes this really fast. Using it for a year, I've caught a bunch of bass with it, trout, a few catfish. Really well made reel. I got no complaints over it besides maybe line capacity. Line capacity could be a little bit better in this reel, but you're only getting like 95 yards of 8-pound test and like 80 of 10. So, but if you're just like me, you're fishing from the bank, or you're finesse fishing from the bank or a kayak, it doesn't really matter how much yardage or line you got. It's how the reel functions and works, and it works really well. The only drawback about this reel though is when you're maintaining it. I did break the frame a little bit to have to get the reel out of the body, and I'm going to show you how to take it apart and for servicing and then reassemble this reel, because there's no video out there on how to take this reel apart for maintenance. For people who want to buy this reel, I recommend this reel. It's a really good reel. The push button is a little bit small compared to the Zebco and the Cast King Brutus, but it does work and it functions really well. The feather touches really well to stop your line when you want it as a line break. Very fast reel. I think it's a lot better than some of the older Johnsons, and I would go as far as say this is better than the Cast King Brutus. I put it right there on the spectrum of the quality and how good it works. It also feels good in your hand too when you got it on a rod and you're reeling. It doesn't poke out like the Brutus does and hurt your hand. It does really well form in your hand when you're using it on a rod. So that's another thing I like about it. And another thing I like about any Spincast reel is it has to have a big hole. If it doesn't have a big hole, it just doesn't cast right. And this one with the big hole casts really well. Like I said, but we're going to take it apart and show you how to take it apart so you can maintenance it. Some tips and tricks on taking it apart. Tips and tricks on how to maintenance it. Okay, the first thing you want to do is you want to set the drag as tight as it'll go. I mean, super tight, because you're going to have to take the spinner head off, and you literally almost got to break the damn thing to get the spinner head off. Now, you twist off the cover, first thing you do, and you take your hand and hold it like this, and the spinner cone should come right off after you tighten it. Once you do that, you can take the handle crank off if you want. At this point, take the handle crank off like so. Take the handle off and then unscrew the star drag from the base of the reel. Once you unscrew that, you'll have a spring underneath it right here, which goes back in that order, and it has a small washer that goes on top of that, and you take that off. Now at this point, the reel is going to be almost impossible to get out. You have to break this little piece right here to get it out, and it's kind of a tight squeeze to get out. You have to take a small tool, get it underneath there, push it out, but you have to break this spot right here just to get it out of the reel. So that is a disappointment about having to do that, but it was the only way I could get the reel out without breaking the entire frame. And at this point, you could take the spool off by twisting it like so, twisting the spool itself, and it comes right out. Once you do that, you can pull the pinion gear out like so. Once you pull that out, you take out the wheel gear, the helix wheel gear, push it out from here like so, and inside there's a little washer on the inside. You can take that out, take some Q-tips with some WD-40 and spray this whole thing out, put some Q-tips in there, take a rag and clean all that out, and clean all the old grease off, re-grease it with some kind of like lithium grease, and re-grease that. And then you can take a toothbrush and some warm soapy water, clean that out, re-grease it with some grease, and put it all back together again. And here, right here is the anti-reverse paw switch that goes in, and there's a small washer right here on the body of the reel that could be taken out, but you have to return it in that order. In order to clean this body, you can spray it out with some WD-40. You can pull that ball bearing out, and there's another ball bearing right here in the front of the reel. Pull those out, take some Q-tips in there with some WD-40 or some 409 and clean that out, re-grease the hole with some grease and a Q-tip, and re-grease this and stick it back into the reel itself. Once you do that, you can clean out the spinner head as well with a toothbrush, and then put a little bit of grease on these when you're done cleaning it out, and put some oil on them, and they're ready to go again. Put a little bit of grease in there. It has two metal pickup pins, sort of reminiscent to a 202, except it has two instead of one. So you can push these out and replace the springs if you need to, or send it back to bassproshop to get them to fix that for you if you ever have the need for that. If the pickup pins are not working right, you just re-oil them and clean this out with WD-40 or soapy water or whatever, 409, then rinse it out, and then re-lube it all, and then stick it back on the reel. You want to put a little bit of lube on top of the spool, not so much on the bottom. You don't need it with this type of reel setup. You can clean out the body with a rag, and then clean around these threads here, and once you clean around the threads, it should be ready to go. Clean out the center of this reel here with a rag, a wet rag, and then put some oil on the inside of it, and then it's really good to go. And what we're going to do here is we're going to put a little bit of oil grease on here on the pinion gear, because I was playing around with it earlier and I pretty much took all the grease off of it. We'll put some grease on there, some more grease, and once I do that, I'm going to put a little bit of grease on this as well, and not too much, just a little bit. You don't want really too much grease, because I was playing around with it is the reason why it needs to be greased again. On the inside here, that little plastic washer, you can take it out if you feel like it, but you don't really have to unless it's really dirty. You know, you just take a little bit more grease and just put it on the outside like that, and put some grease on there. You want to coat grease on the outside of the shaft as well of this right here, and on the center here it comes apart there too. Put a little bit of grease on that, put it back together again, and drop this little gear wheel back in here like so, and drop that back on there like that. Now at this point, we're ready to reassemble the reel. I was just doing this for a manual, because I've never seen anybody do a dismantling of one of these reels. We're going to put the first thing that came out basically is the wheel gear in first, and we're going to replace the anti-reverse switch right here. You have to replace it like so, with the skinny end pointing down and the fat end at the top. We're going to have to put this stupid thing on there first, and then put the little washer on the outside like that, and then push it in there like so. It should go in nice, and it should grab. Once it goes in there, you can return the pinion gear in the center there until it rides, and once it rides, you're ready to go. At this point, I like to put on the star drag and the handle again. The first thing you want to do when you put the handle in is you want to hold down that pinion gear, put the handle on, put the little washer first on there, and then put on the spring, and then add your little star drag on that booger, and hold that little wheel gear down a little bit. And once you hold that down, you don't want to get it too tight. You don't want to tighten it up until you get it back into the graphite body. Once you do that, you put the handle crank back on it, and put the handle crank back on it like that. And you put the nut in there like so, and then tighten it down. Okay, it's tight. Now we're going to return the spool. Now the spool will go in like this. You put it through the top like that, and there's little teeth on the bottom right there that hold it into place, and then you turn the spool, and it locks that spool in place, and she's ready to go. Once you do that, we're going to return this to the body of the reel, the reel's body, and once we do that, it's a little bit of a chore to get it in here, but once we get it in here, okay, with some with some elbow grease, we finally, like I said, you gotta watch the line going underneath the frame sometimes, but with some further coaxing, we finally got it in the body, which is a pain in the butt to do. Now that that's done, you want to tighten up that star drag as tight as it'll get. I mean, like breaking it tight. Once you do that, you could put the spinner cone back on, spinner head back on. Once you do that, you just tighten it up, and that should be good enough. We will, the way I like to do is like back it off and then twist it back on, and once we do that, we will have a fully serviced reel. That's how you service it and take it apart. And for $14, I highly recommend this Stampede Bass Pro Shop Spincast reel. For a year I've used it, and it works really good for a year. So if you see it at Bass Pro Shop, don't pass it up. It's a good reel, and it's a well worth buy for 14 bucks, either for a kid, avid fisherman, or just if you're like me, I'm just a regular Joe fisherman. It's a great utilitarian reel that will fill up a bucket full of fish in no time flat. This has been the review on the Stampede and how to take it apart, and maybe some tips and tricks on how to maintenance your Stampede Bass Pro Shop reel. Y'all, if you like this video, please hit the like, share, and subscribe. And y'all know what you can do. You put God first, He puts you first, and you know what else? God loves you, so does your old pal Hondo. Peace out, YouTube.
Tell me pretty lies, look me in the face, tell me that you